Şimdi efendim Elizabeth Chee kendisi uzun yıllar Microsoft'ta çalışmış ve yakın zamanda 1,5-2 sene kadar önce ayrılmış. Kariyerinde kişisel sebeplerle bir kırılma yaratmış. Bu aşamalardan sağlık sektörüne yöneliyor. Hatta sağlık informatiği üzerine de yüksek lisansa başlıyor. Bir anda bu şeye giriveriyor. Kendisi şimdi HIT, aslında açılımı da Health Information Traceability, sağlık bilgisinin izlenebilirliği vakfında kurucu. Avrupa ile Singapur arasında mekik dokuyor. Biz kendisini Singapur'da yakaladık. Orada değerli görüşlerini alacağız. Kendileri aslında veri geleceğin para birimidir şeklinde bir yaklaşımla konuya yaklaşıyorlar. Kişisel verilerin tokenlaştırma, yani aslında token simgeleştirme demek de biraz daha yaşı ileri olanlar jetonlara token deriz. Yani verinin jetonlar haline dönüştürülmesi gibi bir yaklaşımları var. Sistemin merkezinde de blockchain var. Tabii blockchain olunca, tokenlaştırma olunca, bir süreç akışı olunca ister istemez bulut bilişim, IoT, yapay zeka ve benzeri teknolojilerde iş modelinin bir parçası. So I had the pre-introduction. During the discussions here, we ended up at the point that data is the most important component of the whole sector, whole industry, now and in the future. So I think it's you will be enlightening us with the future of digitization in health as well as the tokenization system. So stage is yours. Okay.
Thank you very much. So let me first share my screen. So can everyone see my screen? Great. So good afternoon, everyone in Turkey. My name is Elizabeth Chee. And firstly, let me extend my thanks to the TTGV Foundation, to Dr. Sekina, Toga, Taufun, yes, and the entire team for having me. Pleasure to be here. So first and foremost, I would like to give a quick introduction of myself. I know that Dr. Sekina has already given a really good introduction, but probably you're wondering why I'm here. Given that I'm not a medtech person, neither am I a pharma person, I'm not a medical doctor, so why am I here? So simply, firstly, as my role as a co-founder of the newly health tech startup in Switzerland, I would like to provide you a very simple business perspective on how we've been leveraging the blockchain to address healthcare. And secondly, as an individual just like yourself, not just a patient, a healthy individual, a consumer, as well as from the eyes of a caregiver and as a daughter of an existing cancer patient. So what I'm going to do is to first give you a general overview of where we are at a digital landscape, digital health landscape, the key trends, share with you some of the healthcare challenges before I go on to talk a little bit about HIT Foundation. So the use of modern technologies and digital services is not only changing the way we communicate, they also offer us more innovative ways, okay, for the way we're monitoring our health and well-being, giving us greater access to personal data for our self-management. And together, a lot of these advancements have been leading us to a convergence of information technology, people and connectivity, and also improving the way we deliver health and care outcomes. So when we talk about digital health, it's a very, can you still hear me there? Yes, great. So when we talk about digital health, it is actually a very broad umbrella, a term that covers the subsectors such as e-health, m-health, telehealth, health IT, telemedicine, and personalized medicine. And why digital health? Because worldwide, we have been seeing an ever-rising and actually acceleration of an aging population, and Turkey is, of course, no exception. The second thing is we are increasingly seeing a lot of the healthcare systems, governments alike, both public and private sector, facing increasing challenges of actually managing cost. So to us, digital health and care interventions are actually recognized as key to the solution of delivering better care while balancing costs and also offering at an optimal quality. Now, digital health does not only apply to health services, we also need to think about the broader picture of how we look at the extended, the peripheral services, care services that's beyond the healthcare system, beyond the hospital, all the ongoing monitoring that's actually currently not very well captured. So in terms of trends, when you think about key trends in digital health, firstly, not a surprise to everyone, we've been talking about this for a long time now. In fact, the past couple of years, telemedicine is still evolving, and it's also seen as one of the fastest, the biggest sources of rapid change in healthcare systems around the world. In a large country, I mean, for example, like Turkey, I mean, in comparison to Singapore, Singapore is so small, Turkey is huge in our terms. We believe that in a large country like Turkey, where access to providers can be limited because of, just the sheer size of the country, the provinces, etc., where, remote health care can be difficult, telemedicine serves as a very good bridge to help that and to address the resource shortage as well. We see that telemedicine is also improving diagnostics, treatment by also making easier for patients to get access to specialists. The availability of records also make it very simple to forward documents back and forth between people in the rural areas versus people, the resources in the center. The second thing, you have heard a lot about IoT. So I would like to add it on in a healthcare perspective. It's the Internet of Medical Things. Now, why is it Internet of Medical Things? Because by actually combining IoT itself, the development with telemedicine and telehealth technologies, you have the entire branch of the Internet of Medical of Things basically emerging. So this includes the use of course, all your wearables, your sensors, your medical devices that's issued by the hospitals, many other things that actually can support the whole delivery of care, whether you are on-site or you are remote. By 2017 alone, you see that nearly 60% of a lot of the operations in the healthcare field has actually adopted such a system. And I believe Turkey is also on track to do that. Between 20 and 30 million of IoT devices, they're expected to actually be deployed by 2020. And the market potential of the entire connected health market by the year 2020 is estimated to be at about 136 billion US dollars. The next thing, it's also cloud computing. As Dr. Sakin, make sure I got your name correctly. Yes, Dr. Gopina, yes. You also mentioned that data. Data has been a very key point in driving a lot of the healthcare systems. As we consume more data, as we get more connected, cloud computing gets ever more relevant. I know we've been talking about cloud computing for the last maybe 5, 8, even 10 years. But it is still evolving as we continue to build larger data centers, and when with the Internet of Things, with the consumerization of IT, where people demand that instant convenience, where patients, individuals alike, they look at how they can better access their health data, whether it's personal medical records or even non-medical records, but health data. Cloud computing offers a very good source of storage. The next trend, we talk about augmented reality, virtual reality, or you call it mixed reality, or some people call it cross reality, all the R's. The arrival of all these kind of solutions has actually led to a lot of significant advances in healthcare technologies itself that we could never have imagined a decade ago. For example, one of the biggest problems when it comes to overcoming motor deficiencies following a stroke in putting patients in a robust environment where they feel safe, yet have the confidence to look at rehabilitation, to foster the improvement. All these kind of enhanced and stimulated environments actually facilitate patients' recovery, and it also reinforces their adherence process to the treatment, resulting in faster and better outcomes. We can't talk about digital health, we can't talk about data without AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has come a long way, and it is still in every stage, still being developed as we talk about it right now, because it really depends on what kind of data you collect. There's a lot of data sitting around, but a lot of it are actually in silos, in so many different formats. So how can we actually try to break down those data silos to gather the real intelligence that can actually facilitate proper machine learning? And as you know, in machine learning, it very much depends on the input of the data. If it's garbage in, it's actually garbage out. So we need to make sure that we leverage AI in the best possible way, also in an ethical way, to facilitate that learning that can continue to augment. Now, I want to repeat this, is to augment the skill sets of healthcare professionals. It's not meant to actually replace people. I like to always use this analogy that whether we use technology or not, but if you're inefficient, you will be displaced. So technology should not actually be a point of contention. And when you think about it, in healthcare, there's a huge shortage of people. We need people. We don't want to displace people. So the only way to progress is actually to keep up and look for reskilling of all the healthcare professionals, help them to keep up, to continue to deliver the best care that they can give. An example of artificial intelligence, you probably have heard of the Microsoft Project I. It's delivered by the Cambridge Research Lab in partnership with Microsoft, where they look at helping radiologists to better detect cancers, look through all these MRI scans at a more efficient manner. And the potential of AI as well as machine learning to enable new business models, to look at how we can continue to aid in robotics and diagnostics is really a lot of potential that I'm very excited about, and I'm sure all of us are. Next trend, it's about chatbots. I'm not sure if anyone in the audience has actually heard of the WOE-bot, W-O-E, WOE-bot. It's actually developed in Stanford University, and I think they have actually partnered with Facebook, interestingly, to help support students, especially university students who are going through a lot of stress studying, and they are prone to a lot more, depression, etc. They need some support, some emotional support. And this WOE-bot has served to be quite a very good tool with artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. that's built into it to continue to learn the behaviors of whoever's using it to help them cope with difficult situations before they actually seek medical help. So we talk a lot about data, they all come together it continues to be driven into data science and to be used for predictive analytics in algorithms that can help with risk mitigation and also in identifying a lot of different patient segments to look at the burden of diseases, to identify any potential unmet needs. Last but not least, something that I'm very passionate about, that my team and I have been leveraging, is actually blockchain. So blockchain, in very simple terms, is basically a chain of information. The technique was originally used in 1991. So it's not a new technique. It's actually a very old technique dating about 20 years back, or 30 years, in fact, 1991, where a group of researchers were using it to timestamp documents, so that digital documents, so that it's very difficult to go back to alter them, and making them very reliable and trustworthy, just like a notary. But the technique actually went unused, largely unused until 2009, when a person or a group of persons under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto used the technique to develop a digital cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. So blockchain in itself, because of its inherent property of immutability, immutability means the difficulty of actually changing something, to reverse something. It's not easy to do that. That makes the blockchain serve as a trusted record of data. It's also secure and transparent, whereby all the transactions are there on the blockchain and no one can actually easily tamper with it. Because if you try to tamper with it, everybody on the network will know. So it serves as like a governance mechanism whereby everyone on the network keep each other honest. Last but not least, we believe very strongly that blockchain has the ability to democratize data ownership, actually putting that control as well as that proactive management of data, health data, back into the hands of the individual to drive real prevention programs and behavioral changes. Now, as you can see, most of these key trends in digital health, it's actually consumer and data driven. We talk a lot about digital health, and you probably have read a lot about literature that says, hey, it's getting to be more patient-centric, more patient-driven. But in reality, with the convergence of so many different kinds of technology, with IoT, etc., it's actually very much consumer-driven. You and I, healthy individuals as well. So when it comes to challenges in healthcare, all these that I'm showing you on the screen are not new. All of you, I'm just assuming that at least half of you are coming from across the healthcare industry, and you're also coming across from different industries where you need data. And these issues are actually not that unique to healthcare industry alone. You have typical data silos, you have scattered systems that don't talk to each other. And when you actually need the data, they're always almost never there when you actually need them. It's like Murphy's Law. When you need them, they're not there. And when you don't need them, they're always lying around. There's also a lot of misuse of data, from unreported clinical trials to insurance claims, fraudulent insurance claims, errors by human, such that there's no control, there's no ownership, there's no visibility over what's actually happening to our own data as individuals. And if you throw in the regulations and you throw in people, it always makes it more complicated. But again, at the end of the day, we always need to remember that whether you're a patient or you're an individual or a consumer, we're always at the bottom of a data economy. Your data is being monetized and remonetized without your real consent, without your real knowledge of truly understanding what's actually happening behind the scenes. Ideally, for a company, what they would like you to do is, you pay them for a service, you still give them your data, And long after the transaction between you and the company is done, they continue to monetize and remonetize your data. And we as consumers basically get nothing for that. So I'm very glad that today, throughout the whole session, everyone has been talking about data. Because if you look at all the challenges here, at the end of the day, it boils down to data and information exchange issues. We know that, to summarize it up, what we're facing today from a health data challenge. Centralization. Now, not to say that it's always bad, no, but when it comes to data monopolization as a business model, such that, for example, if you are, let's say, if you're Roche and I'm Novartis, we're never ever going to share data just by default for the fact that that data is proprietary to each other's company. But what that means to the end user, the patient, the consumer, is that it only constitutes a very minute, a very small subset of your data. So how can they ever be professing to drive real transformative breakthrough in medicine when they have so little bit of that data of you? And secondly, there's no real consumer consent, as I said that before. Think about Facebook, think about Cambridge Analytica, think about the recent My Health, My Record in Australia, where the authorities chose to flip the switch to an opt-out model rather than an opt-in model previously, without asking the consent of the individual. And they were opening up the whole system to all kinds of third parties who really shouldn't have that kind of open access to one's personal data. Last but not least, there's actually no incentives to digitize one's health data, even if we are living in the digital era. Think about it. 95% of the time when you're healthy, we don't actually really care. We take it for granted that, yeah, it's sitting somewhere, or it's in a hospital system, or the government is looking, after our data, etc. is there. However, that 5% when you're really sick, when it's time to come to actually mobilize your data, to access it, many times it's often too late. So that is why myself and my team, we founded HIT Foundation, Health Information Traceability Foundation, with a vision to support more equitable and sustainable healthcare that's enabled by shareable data with you and I. So not just patients, but you and I, healthy individuals, at the center of care. Because at the end of the day, prevention is always better than cure. And our mission is basically twofold. We look at empowering individuals to digitize, to maintain, to take more proactive ownership of their own health as well as data. And on the other side of the equation, we actually want to support every single stakeholder group across the healthcare system in driving more transformative medical breakthrough by tokenizing the health data. So what exactly do we actually offer? In very simple terms, we're using the blockchain to provide an open platform for data, for those seeking data, and for those providing data to transact. It's like an Airbnb for health data, but without Airbnb, because it's completely decentralized, we don't store data, we don't monopolize data, there's no database for you to search on. We have designed it in such a way that the data seeker must define their query specifically to show that what are they exactly asking for, what data points, for what purpose, for what time period, is it going to be single, multiple use, and in return, how are they rewarding the data creator for providing access to that data. So that's how we're using the blockchain to record the query. So for example, here, when the seeker writes a query on the blockchain, we're building on NEM blockchain. And the user with your mobile phone, you have a minimum set of data on your phone that defines your profile. No name, it's just like, for example, your birth date, your ethnicity, your gender, and very minimum current medical condition. So let's say if a data seeker is, let's say a data seeker like, let's say Roche, is looking for 1,000 men in Istanbul, age 40 to 45 with high blood pressure. So that query gets written on the blockchain, and your mobile phone with the Hit app, when you launch the app actually reads off the blockchain. And if it matches your profile, then you get a notification. Otherwise, you will not be spammed. And you get to see as an individual, you get a full transparency to see who's asking for what data points, for what time period, for what purpose. And then you choose to decide whether you want to accept it, accept the transaction, accept the offer for the tokens. And once you accept it, let's say if they're offering 100 tokens and you think it's a fair deal, all right, you click accept. The data is delivered either to a website, an app, or offline. The proof of delivery of the data is being written on the blockchain. So it's about the proof, not the actual health data itself. Because one of the key things that we need to understand is that the blockchain is never meant to store large amounts of data. It's neither technically feasible nor is it financially viable as you get too much data on it. And last but not least, it's also illegal under GDPR where people have the right to be forgotten. So we do not want any PII data on the blockchain. We do not want to put any sensitive health data on the blockchain. So once that's done, the token is initiated, the reward, that incentive is recorded on the blockchain, and then the tokens are in your wallet. So we at HIT Foundation, we strongly believe that tokenizing health data not only support you to maintain your own health data, support you to drive more behavioral changes in how you manage your health, but one of the very fundamental things we would love to achieve is to use that to help people in poorer regions to achieve a universal basic income. According to the World Health Organization, to date, we're in 2018, half the world's population, and that's 3.8 billion people worldwide, still lack access to basic healthcare. So can you imagine if they could actually leverage their own health data to get access to healthcare, to use it to offset healthcare costs? That does not only help themselves, it helps to drive, it helps the government to manage costs. It also helps the entire healthcare chain, the whole value chain, to continue to drive prevention and to support a better delivery of care. So the principle is very, very simple. Your data is your IP. We use the blockchain to trace the usage. You as the individual get paid for its usage in tokens. And when you get the tokens, you can actually use it to either redeem healthcare services or non-healthcare services, for example, wellness, supermarket, telco, mobile data plans, depending on how you want to be rewarded. Or if you're in, for example, where we're based, in Singapore or Switzerland, where we're crypto savvy, you can trade it for crypto. It's up to you. We're not going to say anything about that. Last but not least, in poorer regions, say, for example, here in the ASEAN region, you have a lot of very poor people where putting food on the table is their top priority. They can actually use these tokens to convert them into cash to help support their families. So all in all, we feel that this is certainly a fair way of doing data. Now, last but not least, I want to share a really beautiful use case where it's a combination of Internet of medical things in senior care, leveraging our HIT system. The founder and the brain and the idea behind the idea is actually Mr. Acun Tanju. He's actually Turkish. He runs Affinity Home Care in the US, partnering with Mr. Ayhan Ozan Yilmaz and Mr. Mehmet Tanju. of Biomod in Turkey, where they have actually used IoT, the whole IoT device portfolio, the server-side software that's developed in Turkey, combined with the home healthcare services for seniors in the USA, leveraging a HIT system to enable seniors on the HIT platform to help them, to motivate them to share their data so that all these systems, sensors can use the data to develop new preventive services to help them. So I'm very, very proud that they were invited to Switzerland just last month. They were one of the top 3 solutions that were nominated. And when they came to Switzerland, they present to the entire audience in Switzerland, and then the audience actually vote real time. And collectively, Mr. Acun Tenju's idea was actually voted the best. So I want to congratulate himself and also the entire Turkish team. So this is the photo. So Mr. Acun Tenju is actually the tallest guy here in the middle. And up close and personal, this is how he looks. So we're very proud of that, and we're looking to work out further details on how we can continue to develop that solution, leveraging HIT, one of the very good use cases to help people in the US, but we're also looking at how we can support the population in Turkey in the future. So if you share our vision, I welcome you to connect with me so that we can work out like what kind of partnerships to do pilots. We're actively looking for partners to do pilots. Now, to sum it all up, how we see the future of healthcare. We all saw that health data, that is the new currency. It is valuable, it's important, it's the new oil to drive all the systems across healthcare. And we see that data continuously will be moving towards a more decentralized model. It'll be shareable, and it'll be under the individual's control. And as we said earlier, as we have ever rising costs, we know that it's becoming very unmanageable for governments to manage costs. This has to turn around, and it has to be from a bottom-up approach where we mobilize the population, we empower the population, we enable them to take more proactive management of their own health in order to support the overall value chain, not just healthcare providers, but also governments to manage costs and optimize resources. We will continue to see healthcare being consumer-driven. That includes healthy individuals like you and I, as well as patients. And this will be empowered by decentralized technologies as well as a sharing economy. So earlier on this afternoon, I gave a talk about how blockchain could drive value-based care here at the Asia Pacific MedTech Forum. This is my vision. So in order to balance cost, quality, outcomes, putting the individual as well as the consumer at the center of care, we believe that blockchain has every tremendous potential to be able to empower the population, enable them to continue to support prevention and continuity of care, and ultimately it should drive population health, resulting in better health, better care, and a better life. So thank you very much for listening. Now I would like to open the floor up for questions.
Elizabeth, I just first want to thank you for this high density but short presentation, giving some room to think. Maybe I should be starting with the questions. Just I want to ask an off-track question. We have some young talents in the room. So we know that you have been working in the IT industry for a long time, but you left your comfort zone, and we know that successful innovations most of the time emerge from personal stories. So can you give us a couple of sentences? Can you spend a couple of sentences on this?
Sure, thank you for the question. So I've always been somebody who actively drive change and take myself out of the comfort zone. But I do have to admit that as one gets older, you get more comfortable And taking that first initial step into the unknown is always very frightening, myself included. Not to mention, I had a very cushy corporate job with Microsoft back then. When we think about it, I think in 2016 February, there was already a voice that told me that, hey, is this really what you want? Whereby you can't exactly see the direct impact of your work. And as we get older, that's got a lot more than just a salary and money. It's about a higher sense of purpose. What gets you to wake up every morning to go to work? And for me, I've always been a believer of using technology to enable healthcare and education, two of the biggest causes that are very close to my heart. Now, what prompted me to finally choose healthcare was actually, as you can see earlier on in my introduction, I'm actually a daughter of a cancer patient. So my mom was diagnosed with cancer back in 2016, early 2016. But actually, there's a whole complicated story to that I'll summarize. In short, because of the way data was or wasn't shared between the hospitals, etc., she was initially misdiagnosed. Then she was made to go through very unnecessary tests, being experimented on, and she almost lost her life. Had not been a fact that when we were in Singapore, so my mom is actually Japanese, and when we came back to Singapore attending a wedding, she was in crucial pain, and when we sent her into the A&E emergency, we discovered that, gosh, she was actually having acute womb cancer. And that was where I saw how the healthcare system had failed me. But had it not been a fact that, thanks to, back then, I'm still thankful to my cushy corporate job back then, that allowed me some savings, the financial ability to pull her out from one jurisdiction to another, to do that, to get her, treatment. Now, fast forward, that was that huge trigger point that told me that, okay, you know what, it's time for me to step out of that comfort zone. So after a lot of audit transition, I decided to leave Microsoft end October 2016. I took 1 year off to actually go very deeply into healthcare, learning what every stakeholder group across the healthcare ecosystem was doing, where they fit, what drives them, what motivates them, what are their interests, and how can we actually get them to align. So that was what I did. And at the same time, as a natural progression, since I've been in tech space for a long time, after cloud was actually blockchain. But back then, interestingly enough, Microsoft wasn't talking a lot or really looking that deeply into blockchain yet. It only came a lot later. So for me, it was a good time for me to just go deep there. And last year in June, I actually met my co-founder, Dr. Ebert Scheuer. So he's coming from the healthcare side of things, being in a e-health space for the last 20 years. And for me, I'm coming from the business perspective and also from the patient perspective, where I was very driven to find that health tech solution that could break down more data silos and circumvent that whole interoperability challenge that we see in healthcare at the moment. So a long story, but I hope that answers your question.
Okay. We can switch to the audience and get some questions. Evet, sorunuz varsa. Mikrofonu oraya uzatabilir miyiz? Mikrofon.
Hi, Elizabeth. This is Berkin. I have a question.
Hello.
Hi. I have a question about your business model. So, as I also an amateur crypto investor, like I was checking out your like business model, and it kind of looked like the Shizam. It's a kind of like a currency where you sell your genetic data, and you get paid for that. And as a potential, let's say, as a potential human living in Turkey, how you like planning to implement to this plan to the like other countries, like in a realistic way? For example, let's say that I just get tokenized, I get paid with your currency, and how will I be able to turn into that tokens into a healthcare beneficial for my individual health insurance, or how will I get benefit from that? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So we are an open platform. We welcome partners to partner with us. Our business model is largely leveraging on partners in each country. Because as you're aware, outside of the EU, certain countries have certain jurisdictions whereby the data is actually not owned by the individual. It actually sits in systems and belongs to systems where it's sitting in. We will always be compliant with the government. That's the first and foremost ground. We will always engage the government when we drive such solutions. And for Turkey, we'll be looking to partner with local partners in Turkey across insurance, pharma, medtech, even non-healthcare partners to grow the ecosystem there. That's how we are doing it step by step, country by country. And our focus areas are actually in 2 continents, namely Europe and Asia.
I think we have room for another question, the last one. Bir sorumuz daha var mı? Evet, bir beyefendiye de uzatalım.
Elizabeth, hi, this is Ayhan. Mehmet is also here. I just wanted to say hi. Thanks for mentioning our success in the HIT Foundation competition. So we were really glad to present our solution on senior health monitoring system, and we are really eager to go further in the second step. So maybe you would also like to explain the second steps or the integration possibilities for other partners that also want to integrate to the HIT Foundation. And a second question is, here in Turkey we are developing some solutions with senior health monitoring system. We are developing an IoT device. I don't know, maybe you can see me in the camera. We have the product version of our solution, and we are also applying our solution to hospitals in Turkey. So my question is, what can be a possible solution that we can apply here in Turkey? So we have a government-regulated system, so are there any challenges that we have to overcome? Are there any best practices that you can advise us?
Sure. So I will summarize that. First of all, we will always be looking at, because when we talk about health data, it's not just patient health records. It's a very broad set of data from patient self-reported outcomes, individual self-reported outcomes, from surveys doing population health to surveys about, hey, how do you feel about after taking a certain medication? How many steps do you run per day? Things like that. That's very broad. That's not even within the current system. So we will start off small, firstly, by looking at data that's not in patient health records. Because this is the easiest to start step by step, to demonstrate the pilots, to show how it can actually work within the micro ecosystem, whereby we engage a healthcare provider, a non-healthcare provider, and also ourselves hit to do a pilot. So there are lots of there are lots of use cases on our white paper that I encourage everyone to check out our website. You can download a white paper, look at the different use cases. We offer use cases for insurance. We offer use cases for pharma, for medtech, and also even non-healthcare partners. They are looking to serve as bonus providers to offer their solutions to existing user bases from other partners, but also to acquire new customers. So our platform is very versatile in a sense that it allows every single stakeholder group across the healthcare ecosystem to play. And if you want more details, we can actually sync one-to-one, because how we're going to do pilots is depending on what's your immediate need. What kind of problem are we looking to address? Then we define that we define a use case to address that, and then we can seek out the partners to carry out the pilot.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have all benefited from this inspirational presentation. Thank you for your contribution to the discussions here in Turkey, in Istanbul. We had a wonderful afternoon here, and I hope you also enjoyed the discussions. Thank you for joining us for today's event.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Gopinath, and thank you everyone again. So I wish you all a good rest of the evening. So we'll be keeping in touch. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or through email. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
İşte efendim, herkes duydu tabii. Tüm dünya benzer konularla uğraşıyor. Tabii bir takım Türkleri Singapur üzerinden öğrenmek, tanımak benim açımdan şahsen de çok hoş da bir deneyim oldu. Dünyanın ne kadar küçüldüğünü gösteriyor. Etkinliği bitiriyoruz. Burada Mete Bey'den rolünü çalıyorum. Genelde çıkar o söylerdi bu cümleleri. TTGV geleneği ve alışkanlıkları... Efendim? Biliyorum. TTGV geleneği ve alışkanlıkları çerçevesinde son sözü Yönetim Kurulu Başkanımız Cengiz Bey söylüyor. Kendisini buraya davet etmek istiyorum. Gerçek anlamda el yapımı bir sunumla diyeyim, kendisinin bizzat hazırladığı ilham verici bir sunumla geceyi noktalandıracağız. Cengiz Bey buyurun.